So now we're going over chapter 19. We'll be going over the last chapter today. Whether this is or is not in the order of the book is kind of irrelevant. Sometimes I just want to throw this one in just because it's a good time to do it. Now, chapter 19 is on dying. And this is actually going to be kind of a quick one, as you can probably tell from the how long this is going to take from the video itself. We have a few different things with chapter 19. First of all, keep in mind this is not a clinical classroom. We do not care about trying to help people. The very reason I don't get into clinical therapy is because, first of all, you have entire classes where that's functional and they should be taught by clinicians. They should not be taught by me. But second of all, the reason we don't need to care about how to help people is because the idea of psychology is not to help people. People might use psychology to help people, but that's not the goal of psychology itself. The goal of psychology is to understand people. And if you wish to help people, then great. Get a good understanding and use this to find out how to help people. But it is not our goal in this class or pretty much anything outside of actual clinical courses that you basically just take basically abnormal psych and then graduate courses. Those are the only times you're actually going to get into how to help people. So to start with here, we're talking about death, and obviously there's a big to-do with grieving, and we're talking about grieving in discussion sections here. So to begin with, I will just show you a brief clip. There is a Kubler or something or other, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, theory on grieving, and I will give you the most entertaining version of this that I have seen.
Uh-oh. It's no big deal. It's probably not even quicksand. I'm gonna have a good laugh about this tonight with the guys. Well, this is just perfect. Stupid quicksand. Stupid jungle. I want to bite someone in the face. Mother. Ah! That stupid jungle. Are you there, God? It's me, Giraffe. Listen, if you would just give me a mulligan on this quicksand thing, I promise. No more peeing on your shorter creatures. What, you get a deal? You know something? I'm cool with this. I bet heaven has all the tender leaves I can eat, and everyone gets their own Slurpee machine. Yeah, take me, sweet death. I await your loving embrace. What? I think I hit the bottom.
So, fairly entertaining, and actually, surprisingly enough, goes over the theory fairly well. Now, as far as models of loss goes, how do I describe this? It's extremely culturally dependent, which is why we're going over the subject in discussion this week to begin with. Not only are the models of loss extremely culturally dependent, but they're very religiously dependent as well. And this actually makes it very difficult to figure out, first of all, looking at religion from a psychological viewpoint, which is one of the few times you can really combine both religion and psychology, is to try to figure out exactly why people choose to believe what they do. Now, obviously, a lot of it is very cultural. If you were born in this country, you're probably a Christian. I know a lot of people like to say, I chose this religion because it came from the heart, blah blah blah. But realistically, if you were born in in Pakistan, you would have chosen Islam from the heart. If you were born in Israel, you would have chosen Judaism from the heart. And if you were born in China, you would have chosen Buddhism from the heart. There's, for the most part, we don't really have too much of a choice. It's very culturally determined what religion we're going to choose. But for the few of us that do actually really choose to believe something, I'm not sure what percentage of the population it is, it makes us wonder why we actually choose to look at these particular religions. And obviously, as I mentioned, religion is a trying to figure out the unknown, things that cannot be scientifically proven, which is why we get into death here. Because what happens after you die, that's never been determined through science, probably never will be. And even in the Robot Chicken episode, fascinating thing about education, by the way, it actually goes past all copyrights. As long as you're using something for educational purposes, there's no such thing as copyright. So I can flat out say that was a Robot Chicken episode. But when it goes over the bargaining stage, it even talks about God. This is where people start to look for religion. They start to, there's an answer they don't know. So, but why do they start to look at some of these specific religions that they may have? Obviously, during the time of death, people often turn religious to try to seek these answers, but at the same time, some of their beliefs are somewhat contradictory. For example, we can speak of Christianity very easily because, we're in America and we're all very familiar with the culture. And in Christianity, they essentially believe that there is a heaven, there is a perfect place that you will go to, and most Christian sects, there are a small handful of exceptions, but most Christian sects believe that no matter what you have done wrong, as long as right before you die and before you get a chance to mess up again, you say I'm sorry to the right person and mean it, then you get to go to heaven. So you would think if they believed this, they would love death. They would be all about death. Their loved one was dying. You're like, great, Mom, say you're sorry and I'll be happy to kill you off or whatever before you get a chance to mess up again. And of course that would be a sin, but then you could just say you're sorry again. But the point is, with a guaranteed heavenly afterlife, you would think that death would not be anything to be afraid of. And yet it is. Again, looking at the psychology of religion, there are entire theorists and it's a fascinating field of study. Other religions, of course, have completely different points of view. And in our religion, in this country, the Christianity is, while it talks about an eternal reward, also talks about a constant fear of death. Your mortality is something that's constantly being remembered. There's no, even an afterlife, in some views, might take unlimited amounts of time until the rapture comes before you actually get there. And then you never know. You don't know if you were a sinner ahead of time. You don't know if you apologize for the right things. And so the loss often comes from just a mourning that you're not going to be with the person. You're not really afraid for them, you're afraid for yourself because you're no longer going to be with the person. And in a lot of cases, you're showing off. You are displaying your mourning to everybody else, and this makes you a good person. It makes you a good family member. And think about it. Think about if you were to go to a funeral, and everybody else there, this was a family of wailers. They're just wailing and they're crying and they're carrying on, and you don't. How do you look? You look cold, you look unemotional. And so a lot of this model of death is based upon, just the social structure of the people who are still alive. Now, one thing that I do want to cover here, because a lot of this other stuff, from there on, that's just to give you some ideas for the discussion, is going to be based on the discussion that we have this week, is euthanasia. Now, there's a woman, and her name is Chantal Sebire. I don't know, she's from France. Sebire, Sebire. I'm going to show you a picture of this woman, and I'm going to warn you ahead of time that if you get queasy or you don't like horror movies or something like that, I will warn you when I'm about to show you the picture, and then there will be silence while I'm showing the picture. And then when I start talking again, you can look again. I don't want to freak anybody out with this. This was a woman from France, who is a big proponent of euthanasia. And euthanasia, of course, is the whole right to die, killing people because they wish to die. This woman had a tumor in her face, and a very pleasant-looking, grandmotherly-looking lady. And the tumor grew in her face. It kind of pushed her face off to the side. You'll see it when I show you the picture. This left her completely blind, unable to taste anything, unable to smell anything. She was able to speak. You'll see from the picture in extreme pain all the time, but she wasn't able to use morphine because it just didn't happen to vibe with her body chemistry, the side effects. And so what she wanted was to be killed. She wanted a lethal dose of a chemical so that she would die, because she was going to have zero quality of life, absolutely none, for the next 3 to 5 years until she actually died. So I will show you the picture of her here, and so if you don't want to see the picture, stop looking right about now. So now the picture is gone. Obviously, this is a woman who had you can tell just by seeing her, she was so hideously deformed. There was no way she was going to have any quality of life. She couldn't even leave her house. She would frighten small children by walking down the street. She would frighten large children by walking down the street. And so she felt that she had a right to not be in this world suffering in horrible, miserable agony with no chance or hope of anything but. It was a completely incurable disease, obviously. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been an issue. Now, we have to wonder why euthanasia is illegal. And it's illegal for a couple of reasons in a few different places in the world. First of all, is religious. There is, in almost all Christian nations, euthanasia either is illegal or was illegal at one point, and this is because Christianity tells you that it's a sin to kill yourself. So they try to make sin illegal. Now, from a judicial point of view, this is actually mandating religion, which makes it morally wrong and reprehensible, but we actually do this a lot more than we like to admit. We mandate religion. At the same time, we have this psychological desire to value ourselves, to value life. We say that human life is precious. Well, there's really actually no logical reason to think that human life is precious. Why do we think human life is precious? Because we're human. So of course we think that we are precious. It actually comes back to the prejudice debates of in-groups versus out-groups. We are always our own in-group. Even if we have, no prejudice whatsoever. It is just we look at every other human as one of us. Well, we're still human, so we're always going to value humans. We're going to be proud of what we are, and therefore we're going to want to keep and maintain what we are, and claim that what we are is religious or spiritual in some way. And this is another trend that you get in all religions, is some notion that humanity is somehow special, that we're not just another evolved creature that happened to evolve with the capacity of rational thought. As a matter of fact, to a lot of religions, the very idea of anything better than humans, other than a god or gods, depending on how many they worship, is sacrilege. It's against their very nature, because Christians have the concept of we were made in God's image. Buddhists and Hindi, they're going to have the religious view that we're spiritual beings that can be reborn, or even better yet, become one with the cosmos. They have a little bit less of the idea that we're special, but a lot of religions really do. So what I want people to think about is exactly why euthanasia itself is, if anybody is against euthanasia, against the idea of the right to die, I want you to think about exactly why you are, and if it has a religious implication, because typically this is the only thing you're afraid of at this point is death, and since that's completely unknown, it kind of leaves the realm of science altogether. It's almost like it has to be religion. The other aspect is suicide, and this is something that isn't particularly covered in the book, which I think is kind of a shame. Is suicide, of course, is another form of death, as is homicide, and then of course you have regicide and deicide and all these other sides. Um, it's always nice to see both sides of an issue. Uh, and with all these different forms of death, we kind of put different cultural implications on them. And again, these are very cultural. It is very important to remember that suicide is not a bad thing. It is just seen as bad to this culture. Um, you get other cultures, and suicide can be seen as a very noble thing, as the only way to really give an apology to some things. Um, but we don't see it like that at all here. We consider it a tragedy. Um, when in reality, if somebody is, from a purely logical standpoint, if somebody is, say, depressed and is just going to moan and whine the rest of their lives and never contribute to society, what good are they doing here? The answer obviously is nothing, but we kind of rebel against that because of this preciousness of life thing. So we have all these cultural taboos on wanting to kill yourself, so much so that this woman, Chantal, did not kill herself. She petitioned using her own likeness and her own case to try to help other people, try to get euthanasia legal to France. They turned down her case. They decided that even with people like her, it was morally wrong to let people kill themselves. She actually got the verdict, and I believe within a month died naturally. Anyway, she was mostly trying. She knew that the court rulings would take longer than she had. She just decided to try to use this to help other people. But at the same time, she never killed herself, which obviously would have been easy. She wanted somebody else to kill her. That would leave her guiltless, I guess, sinless, however you want to look at it. So it just kind of makes it kind of an interesting dynamic in that regard. That's about all we're going to get into with Chapter 19. Like I said, it's a little bit fast and something more interesting for discussion than lecture.